My name is Martin Klaassen, and welcome to another interview session with the virtual lighting design community. My guest is Charles Stone. Welcome. Charles, maybe for our viewers you can introduce yourself for those people that may not know you. Give a bit of background, where you're from and what you do in your daily life.
I will. Good afternoon. I'm Charles Stone. I'm the president of Fisher Stone, based in New York and Seattle in the US. And this marks my 40th year with the company. And I'm not done yet. It's great to be here in Dubai, and let's have a conversation.
All right. So, you're here because you're delivering a keynote at Light Talks. Can you tell us a little bit about what the subject is and what you're going to discuss?
Well, our panel's on dark skies, sustainable lighting, human impacts.
Very important.
So I think my job in the keynote is to set up that conversation among the panel. I hope to be a little bit provocative. And
always good.
Well, yes. So I'm quite interested in the topic now, and I think people need to look at it from not just evidence-based design, not just regulations, but also the opportunities for good emotional response as lighting designers in a dark skies world.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, we apply these dark sky principles mostly, like nearly automatically, subconsciously, I think, right? But it's always good to bring that in the open and sort of make that more obvious for people, certainly also the new generation, people that are getting into lighting design. So, tomorrow, I saw there's a couple of very interesting panel members as well with you, even somebody from the Stargazers. You know something about that?
There's a statistic, something like 80% of adults in the US have never seen the stars.
Right.
Well, or the Milky Way, I think is the way the question's worded. And that's, of course, a bad thing. I think as lighting became so cheap, the cost of aluminum keeps falling over the last 200 and some years.
Sure it did.
And we used a lot of it at night. And in all of our extending the day, we eradicated the night. And not until the last, really decade or two, have we had a serious reconsideration of what happened. So that as a background to this topic, you know, there are impacts, some of which are sort of obvious, like did you see the Milky Way? Some are less obvious, like impacts to health or wildlife. And we should be talking about those. So
do you have stars where you live? You get out. You
don't see them much in New York. I see them in Seattle quite easily if I want to just leave the city quickly. And in Tucson, I can walk outside and look at them any night.
I saw that when I moved from Singapore to Perth. Singapore, with a lot of difficulty, maybe 1 or 2 stars. When I get in Perth, I can see a lot of stars. And when I go down south to the countryside, you can really see the Milky Way. And there's a lot of people don't have that.
Tucson is where the Dark Skies Org was founded by David, and he created a whole lifestyle really around looking at finding the dark places in the US and in the world.
It's fantastic. Now, this year's show themes are innovative lighting design, sustainable future, and seamless integration. What do they mean to you as a long-established lighting designer with a huge practice? Surely these have impact on the way you produce your work.
I have to answer that question colored by my experience.
Yes, of course.
I think that's what you intend.
That's what I want from you.
Well, let's take innovation. For me, innovation, of course you can say that using new technology is evidence of innovation. But I'm more interested in an emotional response that project produces. That's a different kind of evidence, maybe. You could say. So if you measure projects against each other and some evoke real wow or magic, we say, in my office we always say we make magic, then that's innovation. They must be doing something innovative.
Right.
The second one would be sustainability,
Yep. The future is, yeah.
which we're touching on here with the whole dark skies movement discussion.
Yeah.
But of course, the more obvious is being good stewards of resources, meaning energy.
Yeah.
So if you're a good steward of energy on a project, you're using only what is necessary, which is good design anyway.
Yeah. We should be doing that anyhow.
Well, one definition of good lighting design is only put light where you need it,
exactly.
which I think is a sustainable practice, a rule to live by, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's the third category?
The seamless integration,
Of
where
course.
we look at the smart IoT and how that's going.
All right. Well, we consider our practice. I consider myself an architectural lighting designer, capital A,
Yeah.
meaning our job is to serve the architecture.
Correct. Yes.
Most of the time, that means we should not be noticed. So one definition of seamless integration would be lighting that is part and parcel of the architecture, fits in a way that it's not distracting and not annoying because it's visible.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean everything has to be hidden, but seamless integration definitely part of an everyday evaluation tool I would use in design. So it's a good theme.
I always say that the best comment is no comment, because that means it somehow harmoniously fits and it doesn't stand out.
No, we all have the maximum. The best lighting is that which is least noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. Now, we have lived through pandemic times over the last couple of years, and many lives and work environments have changed because of that. How has that impacted you, from your point of view of your practice in New York, and maybe you have comparison to all your projects worldwide, how that has impacted you in other places in the world, maybe notably here in the Middle East?
I have several answers to that.
Go for it.
The impacts on my personal life, I spent more time in Tucson and in Seattle than I would have otherwise, particularly Tucson where I could be outside.
Fantastic.
As a intellectual exploration of our work, I developed a whole series of papers, and we published a little one of our little digital books called Outside Light.
Right.
On the belief that when we come out of the pandemic, that all of our clients, the developers, the owners, are going to spend more money on outside spaces.
Okay.
They're going to have conference rooms with windows that open. They're going to have more little buildings on the landscape that are conference rooms. They're going to have more cafe spaces which are inside, outside, etc.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've seen that come true.
Yeah.
In the more literal answer to your question, we, like everybody else, we went entirely remote. Let's see, it was March 13th was our last day in the office of 2020.
Yes, around there, yep.
And I remember we bought about 20 laptops
Right.
to supplant what we already had. And we did it right away. We got there in time before they ran off the shelf.
Yeah. There was a run on it, I remember.
And we operated almost entirely remotely. A few people would come in. Paul Morantz, one of our founders, he eventually came back to New York and started going to the office every day when no one else was there. He would say, "Where are you all?" But even now, we're operating 3 or 4 days a week in both Seattle and New York, where people are in the office or at a site visit 3 or 4 days a week. I can't tell whether that's the new reality of working together in an office studio. I don't think you can teach a young designer unless you're sitting
probably
next to
finds
them.
its way naturally over time, I guess.
I'm skeptical about that. I mean, there are some things that work very well. We've spent a lot of energy. We have a full-time IT person. He's more than a person. He's been with the company 20 years. Our
Right.
growth in IT is because what Vadim, our guy, has done for us. And so we have great technology for working together. But it's still not the same as sitting with each other.
No.
But the impacts on the business are real also, because you have office space in New York. Some say it's 50 or 60% occupied. Other cities are lower in the U.S. that's going to have an impact on every aspect of interior design of those spaces and the number of square feet
It will
that
have, yeah.
owners are going to take going out 2, 3, 4 years from now when their leases come up. I don't think we know what those impacts are.
We'll see. We'll see in the future. I'm pretty sure.
COVID has been a real challenge for all of us.
Yeah. Well, even commissioning projects while you couldn't go to site, you learn the value of a camera versus your eye.
It's true,
right? That has been quite an eye opener. I remember doing virtual mock-up room reviews for a hotel or things like that, where we had a wide-angle camera just showing the space, and then another camera going to
We've
the
done
detail.
video walkthroughs of job sites.
Absolutely, yeah. But it doesn't help you really, because I have a self-correcting camera, so it corrects the color temperature.
There's always enough light on my iPhone. That's true.
Anyhow,
Very
we have learned to deal with that. Now, you have also spoken for our VLDC community. Thank you for that. It was a very interesting talk, which I hosted as a panel moderator. What do you think about our VLDC virtual lighting design community? I should say it full up. It's sort of a new way we feel for communication and knowledge sharing. I would like to get your.
It's come at the right time, hasn't it?
Well, it was born during the pandemic, so yeah.
And that's quite attractive, because it allows us to continue the conversations we're having with people I'm seeing around the room here and do it online together. And I think that's valuable. When I did that presentation about art museum lighting, one of the chapters in the series you did on museum and art lighting, I quite liked it. I did some talking to some educators, and the 20-minute format is really good.
Yeah.
And it's the length of my keynote tomorrow. The 20-minute format is a really nice segment for not only students, but for, I think, people in every decade.
You can keep people's attention also.
It's enough, you can get enough content in there, but you can also move quickly, and people will stay with you for the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I found it challenging, and also opened my eyes to a new kind of, I guess format's the right word.
Sort of a TED Talk plus length.
Yeah.
Already, if you look at it. Yeah. No, it's been a pleasure to have you there. That it was really, and your talk was very inspirational as well. Thank you for that. And what I remember is that once we finished, that's when we had a really nice discussion afterwards, which we actually didn't record.
Yes, we have to figure out how to work that out.
Yeah.
We did. We had a good discussion after the talk.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I would like to round up our chat with getting an idea of what drives Charles Stone still at this age, when you come still out of bed full of energy and try maybe to bring out something in this world of lighting.
The thrill and the personal emotion that I remember having and have had at every step of the way when certain projects finished, really every project, but some more than others, I guess, remains, it's addictive.
Yep.
And so when the realized project is good, and the client's happy, and I'm happy, and it does something special, that's quite rewarding. That's personal satisfaction. And you know, there's a lot of concern among my colleagues and here in this room about social justice or changing the world. But you know, I've always felt good lighting does that. I'm very committed to doing good lighting, and everybody should have good lighting, no matter where they are or who they are. And I get a lot of inspiration from that as well. I don't want to be distracted. I'm not going to be as good at Saturday afternoon picking up trash in the park projects. I'm much more inspired by projects about lighting that are bringing more good lighting to more people. The Dark Skies movement is a great example of this. I mean, there's a great paradox there. The idea that lighting equity should be pursued for all people. All right, that the implication then is that dark skies are a privilege and a very good thing for our health, for humanity. And yet, the poorest guy in the smallest village at the edge of civilization has the darkest sky.
Yep.
He knows more about the Milky Way than you and I do.
He does. Yeah.
And so I'm fascinated by that little bit of a dichotomy, and it also gives some inspiration, I think, to the idea that we all ought to have dark skies. So that's only one example. I mean, everybody should be able to have enough electric light because the lumen is so cheap. The cost of making light, it just goes down, down, down over the decades.
Yes,
and still with the LED, it's gone down even farther.
No, we're not there yet. Yeah.
So, well, as you can see, I'll go off on a tangent. I'm quite excited about the field we're in and the rapid change that's upon us, the disruption the technological disruption every 20 years is remarkable.
It's
And
always something new
you and
coming
I
up.
will see more of that.
Yeah. Charles, I hope to see you still for many, many years to come.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your
Thanks.
knowledge.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.